See if I still have space on the phone to be able to record something here. I was thinking about how trying to find a way in an analogy to describe the situation that we have here in the world. And this kind of goes for almost every aspect of our civilization as it stands today. What I see before me in this world is much like the scene in Snow White, kind of. Well, aren't you hungry, dearie? You look like you're starving. Here, have an apple. That's the situation we find ourselves in. Once upon a time, there were free men on the land that lived in tribal societies and people that just lived on the land. Men went out and they took an axe and they cut down some trees and they gathered some branches and mud and whatever else other materials they had available to them from the surrounding stones, whatever, and they built a home and they built a fence and they tilled the land and they planted food and they gathered water from the creek and they lived as free men. One day somebody comes along who's gathered a bunch of resources by gathering men together to follow their commands. So they became powerful and wealthy. They set out with their armies. They saw a vast open land. They reached out their hand and they pointed. They declared and wrote down on paper, all of this land as far as the eye can see is mine. And then everyone that lives on that land shall be made to pay a tax, a toll. Are you trying to feed your family? You cannot be hunting the king's rabbits. How dare you? Are you trying to live in your home without paying the toll? Have him flogged. And this went on, and it spread out. These men, these conquerors, these thieves, murderers, gathered more groups to follow their commands, and they fought over lands and properties, and they took everything from the impoverished people that once lived free. And over time they convinced people that that's just the way it's going to be. Are you impoverished? Come, work at my tavern, and then you shall earn enough to pay thy king's tax. Ah, cannot support your family by farming? Why, 90% of these crops shall be given hereby to the king's men, for you shall pay the tax and the toll in the king's land. Right? And this is how it goes on until now we find ourselves in a society and a world where we're so far away from the natural order and from what was once a free land where free men roamed and lived, that we've come to believe that the situation that we're in is in any way right or natural, that we have to work away. Can you imagine how intelligent a society could get if people just had time to think and read books and lived life. I mean, what do you need to survive? What do you need to live? You need food, water, and shelter. Basic fucking necessities. Some degree of of ability to wash and things like that. I mean, we're living in that sort of system today. There are people in this world that claim to own millions of acres or hectares, whatever unit of measurement you wish to use. These people, through force of violent men that follow their commands, simply outstretched their hands and said that all that lay before me shall be mine. And they took it. And 1,000 years later, we still pay the king's toll. We work our lives away we're trained from birth and all through school with social operant conditioning to walk in a line, follow lines on the floor, do as you're told, ask permission to go to the bathroom, clock in, clock out, seek the approval of the one that is the authority figure, the teacher, the whatever. You must seek their approval. And in order to gain their approval, you must agree with their proposition. You must believe as they believe. You must not question them. You must not think freely. You must not think of anything but to be... You're programmed to, in every possible way, from the school system to governments and even churches, the message is the same. You must toil. You must slave. Be obedient, son. Bow, kneel, pray, beg. Love thy master. Be obedient. Right? This is the message throughout everything. Be obedient. Work hard for others, for another that shall command you, and you shall be rewarded with material resources, but you shall pay a toll. Be obedient, or thou shalt suffer the flames of hell for all eternity if thou beest not obedient. Thou shalt fail to worship thy Lord and Master, shall rule over you for all time, right? This is the message repeated all throughout our history, throughout our lives, by now. I don't know what the solution to this sort of thing is. Clearly, the whole devil worship crap or whatever they claim, and the Gnostics and things like that, they claim to be about freedom, but then they make so obvious that they're the wickedness of their hearts and their intentions, that they wish to destroy things and pervert and corrupt everything. They claim to be for freedom. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Such perverse wickedness out in the open. Yet the only opposition to that tells us, be obedient or suffer eternal torture. If your master strikes you on the right cheek, turn unto him the left. Slaves, be obedient to your masters. So on and so forth. You know? This is the message from the book that says, for I have come to set the captives free. You know? For you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Knock, and it shall be open to you. Seek the truth, and you shall find it. You see? But there's certainly contradictions in a lot of the, you know, talk of animal and human sacrifice in there. There's all kinds of terrible things, of wars and violent, horrendous things spoken of in there. So that leads me away from religion, because I see ugliness in just about everything. I see wickedness and darkness being spoken of and praised. And it makes me sad, because I've known the presence of God, and I've felt His love, His kindness, and I've seen glorious things and miracles in my life. But I've seen wickedness too, and I've heard quite intimately familiar with the devil as well. Not a fan. But it's so confusing and frustrating that I don't understand I kind of understand. If you want to know what the devil's like, man, there's a couple of different ones. Larkin Rose does a pretty good impersonation. And there's this book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil, where I would say those guys have had some personal run-ins with the dude, man. But it doesn't add up. Like, why? Why? I said again, it's like, you know, don't shit where you eat. You know, it's the same sort of thing. It's like he's just destroying himself for just, I don't know, cutting off his nose to spite his face or something. Causing so much suffering and wickedness. Then he'll have to live in the mess and the horror that he's created. Why? God. It makes me sad to see how this world, God, it perverts and corrupts everything. And there's no need for it. The problems we have in this world are so vast because we continue to... We men, women, we people of this world have been busy at work 40 hours a week, forging our own chains. You understand what I'm saying? We're building the tools of our own enslavement and our own destruction, building them hard at work, day after day, in pursuit of bits of tissue paper with funny green painting on it. These ones and zeros printed out of thin air, tapped into a keyboard so we can buy more crap we don't fucking need. How long? How long?